It is that time for the weekly visit that folks clamor for in the SDH universe, and it is time to find out: are you properly hydrating, or are you on another cup of coffee, sir?
I am on my third cup of coffee of the day. I am waiting at a dealership for a car to come out just for some maintenance. So I am all yours for the next 30 minutes, my guy. It's always good to talk to you and get to share whatever the fans want to listen to over there in Atlanta, especially with the Sounders
Uh huh.
Atlanta United game on the horizon.
Uh-huh. I figured that's a lead, sir. So you have been part and parcel to all of the words of wisdom that have come out of Starfire in Seattle this week after the win against Dallas in the midweek. It is a quick turn. It is hopping on a plane, going from one end of the planet to the other. What is the early vibe after a win, short rest, and the first match on a Saturday afternoon Eastern time?
Honestly, it was a good vibe at training today. It was at Lumen Field. The guys got a very short practice, as you would expect, mainly regen. I think a lot of these games when you have to travel across the country, essentially, uh, is going to rely on what the guys already have installed into their regimen, into their program. We talk about identity. This is what that type of situation just has to come out for a team. Raul Diaz was out there doing some extra work. He was one of the few, you could call them starters, usually that stayed late. Clearly, he's trying to get game fit. He's coming from playing approximately 30 minutes in the last game against Dallas, so that's a good sign. I don't think he's going to start. He's definitely going to feature, but it's a good one. I mean, Brian Smetzer was extremely happy to go and play his former assistant coach. He talked about, having no issues with him coming over to the hotel. He was going to invite him over. He was going to allow him to talk to the players he knows, he's played with, his coach. So it was a very cool vibe. It's kind of like when two friends are getting ready to play or duke it out in a very competitive yet, gentleman way. So it was interesting what the field was like at Lumenfield today.
Now, we talked about Seattle with the ups and downs and coming out of Champions League and then the hiccup of form. And then there was the part where folks were sitting there and concerns were existing, but now Seattle's back to the Seattle that I think you and I and a lot of other folks were looking at. Winners of two of your last three. Right now, picture. How would you gauge where Seattle is with the injuries at the back, getting folks back at the right time for the stretch run here with only 11 matches to go? Where do you view Seattle right now with a third of the season to go?
Seattle is trying to find their way. They are obviously dealing with some injuries that, let's say, if Seattle was a car and, maybe a piece of that engine was, malfunctioning. They're trying to figure out what works to make the car go, and that's what's going on right now. You see ups, you see downs. The team is clearly missing that Raul Diaz factor up top. I thought that against Dallas, they didn't quite look fluidly offensively, very stagnant. I thought Leo Chu, who's a guy that a lot of fans want to see more on the field, he was too tucked inside for that formation. He didn't get wide enough sometimes. A lot of effort, which is good to see from the Brazilian. But what Brad Smetzer's trying to do right now is figuring out what he can do to ensure that the goal expectation is still there without having Christian Roldan playing on the right wing. Once you move him to holding mid, you get a great guy that's a ball progressor that does a lot of good things for you, but you're still trying to figure it out. So you've tried Leo, you've tried Jimmy Medranda, and you'll continue to see that. So I think I see Seattle about 80% to their all-around potential, and Brad was just trying to figure it out. once Raul comes back, once the team can really figure out who's going to be the guy either at the wing or at center midfield and where Christian Roldan is best used, that's when you see the best Seattle come out. We talked to Christian today, and he talked about it. He said, look, I like playing both positions. I feel like I do well in both positions. But if the XG is not there for the team, then maybe I have to go back to the wing. And that's exactly what Brian Smetzer is dealing with this team.
Because when you look at the West, and this is a weekly conversation that we have, is almost like your public service announcement for how crazy the playoff picture is right now. In the West specifically, Seattle is 7th, but that's one of the bigger buts in the West when it comes to how things are, because right now 3 through 9 are separated by 5 points. Seattle's right in the heart of that. And they are also tied with Minnesota for the most wins of the folks in that group with 10. So the fact that Seattle is right in the heart of this, as they've gone to the mechanic, and the mechanic has lifted the hood of the car, and he's got it up on the stilts, and he's checking underneath, and he's changing the oil, or he's banging around on stuff on the underside of the engine. I mean, right now, the way that Seattle's looking, 3 points out. Third right now.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, that's what you expect from this team. I told you from the very beginning, and it didn't matter what show we were doing, there was never a doubt in my mind that the Seattle Sounders were going to be in the race, right? I mean, they have done it. They know how to do it, regardless of who's in, who's out. Brian Smetzer never pressed the panic button. The front office never pressed the panic button, right? There's still no signs that this team's going to bring in a signing in this transfer window because they believe in the team and they believe in the system. And they're not going to go out there and make a panicked, unnecessary decision that might hinder them in the future. So that's what makes this team great, right? So now, regardless of how things have played out, they're going to be in the race. And you look at the schedule, and Seattle feels confident that they're going to be able to continue to climb this steady window. Minnesota's a team that, we've talked about the charade that they were. And yes, they picked it up, and they're starting to look really good. A lot like Portland, right? They started bad. They had some ups and downs, but now then they're figuring out. But if you have me choose between Portland, Seattle, and Minnesota, there's one odd duck out, and that's going to be Minnesota. Those are the two. They've been there. They've done that. They have great coaching. They have experience. So it's a huge difference. That's why Minnesota is not someone that I'm going to ride with, regardless of how good they're playing or the type of talent that they have. And this Atlanta game is a big for both sides. We talked to Gonzalo Pineda. He called this a must win. Brian Smetzer is probably thinking this is going to be a must win, but this is a momentum building moment. So it's very important, right? We're going to see two teams are going to go out there, duke it out, and figure out who comes out on top. So I'm very excited about what this game is going to come out like.
When we look at the transfer window and the transfer tracker and all the transfer madness that's going on, for LAG, Raveloson goes to Ligue 1. That's a good piece of business for them because he comes in on a free, you turn him, he goes to Auxerre. Then that opens up an opportunity for Ricky Puig. And when Fabrizio Romano says, okay, here we go, then we know it's official. Galaxy signed Barcelona midfielder Ricky Puig as the Galaxy move on from Raveloson. Revolution acquire Christian McCoon from Charlotte, FC Cincinnati, and Harris Medunjanin are parting ways. And I think that Medunjanin's heading to Zwolle for the next part of his career as he goes back to England. Looks like Charlotte FC was finalizing the signing of Nuno Santos from Benfica. How crazy has this transfer tracker, especially here at the end of the window, been for you? When it comes to this window, how crazy has it been for you?
It's been insane. And there's been such a growth in agents and pieces coming into MLS that before I used to be able to just set my crab pots, if you will, of rumors and transfers, and I'd pick it up no problem. But this season, it's coming out from so many places that I'm catching one or two And by the time I'm getting ready to put it out there, it's already been, published and reported on. So it's been difficult. And that tells you how crazy it has been because of the leagues these guys are coming from, the talent. This Ricky Puig thing, it just came out of nowhere. Nobody really knew that this guy was even in nobody's radar. He's 22. Some people are thinking that he's the next Iniesta or Javi's what I read out there. So there's just so much growth and talent coming into the league that it has been crazy from, the big names, the Bells and all of that, and the possibility of Suarez coming in to all these young guys and the talent that was already coming in. So it's really been incredible. I will say, though, that although everybody's very excited about the LA Galaxy getting rid of Robinson and bringing in this new kid, I'm not so sure, man. Call me, I don't know, a party pooper. Call me too safe. But when something's working for you and you're letting go of your most consistent center midfielder to wonder on the potential of, yes, a very good guy, there's a chance that the guy doesn't adapt. There's a learning curve, and an LA Galaxy team that's looking into the playoffs from the outside in, it's not a good thing to just change things around. I was thinking that this guy was going to come in and maybe be a partner to Robinson, but that wasn't the case. I get that there's salary caps, there's roster spots, there's all these things that are convoluted, but I don't know if this is the perfect move for LA Galaxy or a move that's going to put them over the top. And that's just me.
Because we were just, talking about how cramped things are in the West, with 5 points separating 9, which is where the Galaxy are right now. Losers of 4 of 5 for their last 5, 9, 3, and 10. They're at the bottom of that group that we're talking about from 3 to 9. And, I don't know how much of this might be just keeping up with my next door neighbor, because if you sit there and you're keeping up with the Joneses and it's like, okay, well, they're doing some shiny stuff and they're bringing in some new toys into the driveway. Maybe we need to do the same thing. And it seems like to me, yes, you're chasing after this very shiny, new car in Ricky Puig, but at the same time the point that you're making is that you've got a fairly dependable Honda in your driveway, or a dependable Toyota in your driveway with Raveloson, but you want to trade it up for the new car that's going to kind of look the same in your driveway as the shiny new cars look in your neighbor's driveway. It kind of looks like they might be reaching in a sense of trying to keep up with their neighbors down at Bank of California.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I wouldn't put it past them. The LA Galaxy have always been a club that needs to keep up with the neighbor, like you just said. LAFC has been the thing. They are the Lakers, while LA Galaxy are the Clippers, and that's the way it feels these days. So that's exactly what they're trying to do. But that's what makes bad decisions in the future, right? That's the type of panic that I was just talking about that Seattle would never do, because they're not going to allow media or pressure or, I don't know, the trends of the league to dictate what they have to do. So, yes, I think you're absolutely right. And look, I'm hoping that this works, because this is a young guy that can not just make an impact for the LA Galaxy, but for the league in general. If this 22-year-old can come in here and be this fantastic midfielder, and all of a sudden you sell him out to, the Liga Premier or La Liga or whatever it is, then you're showing that MLS is becoming that place for everyone to go to, right? So I'm hoping that it works out, but I'm not so sure, man. First of all, I don't think it's enough, because once again, you're going to have a disbalance of just one guy being able to do certain type of work in the center midfield. And I don't see the depth still for the Galaxy. So I think that they are going more for style points than for real points.
Looking back at the week that was up to this point, where we will have Friday Night Football, but it'll be up in Vancouver tomorrow. You're looking at Minnesota and Portland, and it was funny last week, and also in the midweek you had 3 matches totaling 8, 16, 22, and then you had 4 matches totaling 31 goals, and then you end up with, outside of San Jose and RSL, who scored 4, you had 3 goalless draws, you had a 1-1 with Nashville, And Nashville had 2 1-1 draws in the past handful of days, and I still think there should be an offensive concern where Nashville is concerned. Austin gets a win against Sporting, which they should have. FC Dallas beat the Galaxy, which we talked about. Wayne Rooney got his first win with DC United and Orlando City. Tell me if you've heard this one before. Orlando City has a lead. They blow it late. DC wins. Seattle gets a goal on the board, and then Inter Miami and stuff. When you look at the week that was, including the stuff in the midweek, what stood out?
I think the thing that stood out to me is Charlotte bringing DC United back to the reality. You have no idea how tired I was of the lazy narrative of Wayne Rooney just being this magical guy that is just going to put it together, and just his presence alone is going to make this awful team into this. Nope. Charlotte brought him back to reality. They completely dominated DC United from the very moment that the whistle blew. I thought they played fantastic. Reyna should have had a couple. It could have been a 5-0 win for Charlotte in this one. So I thought that was interesting for two things. One, Charlotte's really started to get their wheels going here with the team that they have. And then DC United, like I said, just being brought back to reality. I also thought Montreal, Columbus was a good one this week. Columbus just looks so good, but Montreal is so good about doing what they have. Although Cucho Hernandez had a couple of opportunities, a couple of shots in the post, Solarian was still looking great. Montreal was still able to get that 2-1 win, and they're just a team to watch always. So I just thought that both of those scores brought certain teams to their realities and showing you who could be a real contender here in the playoffs once things get started.
Nashville hasn't scored more than 1 goal in their last 5 matches. They're 1-3-1 in their last 5, 3 draws. In their last 10, 5 draws, 2 wins, 3 losses. How concerned are you about a team like Nashville SC, who is just above, as we've talked about, just above Seattle in the standings? If you were a Nashville fan, how concerned would you be?
Can you repeat the last part, John? I totally lost you here.
No, just if you were a Nashville fan, you haven't scored more than 1 goal in your last 5 matches. How concerned a fan would you be? You've drawn your last 3; they've all been 1-1s. If you were a Nashville fan, how freaked out would you be right now?
That's a very good question. I wouldn't be freaked out. I think that there is a difference between being disappointed and being outraged, right? Nashville is a team that has built a success and a identity and whatever you want to call it, with Gary Smith calling the shots, as being a defensive team, a composed team that makes every game difficult for the opponent. So can you be disappointed that maybe they didn't go out there and get a big gun striker or someone that's going to really make you an elite contender? Yes, you definitely can, and the results are showing it, right? But you can't be outraged either, because that's just the way that this team plays. And quite honestly, when it comes to the playoffs, regardless of whether, yes, they're going to need some goals, they're always a team that you don't want to play, because you know what they're about. They're going to make it difficult. They have very good guys in the midfield. They still got Mukhtar that is, in any moment can give you magic. So yes, they've kind of really struck out when it comes to DP strikers, right? Akeloba hasn't been it. They brought Cadiz and it didn't quite work. There's been just so many guys that they've brought in that have not quite worked, that at this point in time, you're kind of maybe thinking twice about who you're going to bring in that's going to really make a difference. So I feel for that front office, and I get why perhaps they are apprehensive about going out there and getting a guy. But I understand why fans would be disappointed that they don't have a better goal scorer for this squad.
Time for cliffhanger. It's how we always like to end our week when it's Thursdays with Niko, and it's whether it's with water or cups of coffee. We run through the schedule. And I sit there and I just name games. And then when Niko wants to talk about a game, Niko goes, stop. And we talk about the game. And it's interesting that there are matchups that aren't all, there aren't a whole lot of saucy matchups this week, but there are some that are intriguing for different reasons. And so cliffhanger starts right now. Friday Night Football, Vancouver hosting Houston. Houston got blown out 6-0 last time. They were plus 217 according to the juice boxes. Not a surprise. I'm anticipating Vancouver taking care of business with that one. We talked about Atlanta and Seattle. It'd be interesting to see what happens there for your kickoff at 3 o'clock Eastern on your Saturday. Charlotte and Chicago. Intriguing, not a marquee game. Charlotte at plus $1.25 right now, and Chicago's at a plus 210. You don't know what Chicago team you're going to get. You don't know what Charlotte team you're going to get. So I guess is that one's going to be a draw. CF Montreal, soon to be Impact, hopefully, probably patent pending trademark coming, hosting Inter Miami. CF Montreal, a big favorite at a minus 172.
That'd be an interesting one. I'll go with a brief one for Cincinnati, Philadelphia, just because, Philadelphia's coming from a 6-0 win. Cincinnati's coming from, 4 goals, where Brenner, they got so many scoring guys in Lucho and Brenner and Brandon Vasquez. So that's going to be an interesting one. I think Philadelphia, for Niko Moreno, is more of a contender to be a shield team and better than LAFC. So this is going to be a good one. And then Montreal, Inter Miami just kind of figuring it out, at least in the attacking end. What Pozuelo has done in allowing all the pieces to fit in the right places is very interesting for me. I still want to see where Campana's going to be now that Higuain is kind of getting his stuff together. In Montreal, like I just said, I talked about them, what they are, who they are. We all know that they can be a very good team. So that's going to be a good one.
You've got Crew hosting NYCFC. Crew at
another big game.
Yeah, Crew at plus 146. NYC at a plus 70. What do you think there?
That's another big game, man. New York City, they continue to be a contender. They have all the pieces to be one, but everyone is still thinking, can they do it without Tati? They tied 0-0 against Montreal. Rodriguez wasn't able to really get going in this one. It was a difficult game, to say the least, for New York, because they're trying to figure it out, right? They move Rodriguez to a little bit of a 10. There's a lot of movement. Talles Magno's doing a lot of movement. Ebert didn't have his best game either. So really want to see what adjustments are made for this one against a very good Columbus team that has some new qualities and that could really be a marker for how this New York team can look in the future.
DC United, Red Bulls, that one could probably put a good bunch of folks to sleep. Although if you had Red Bulls in your fantasy team, like I did, and I had Carlos Coronel, full disclosure, I had Carlos Coronel in net starting fantasy because of who NYC was playing at home, hosting Colorado, and then the Crew. I had, DC United, I actually had Carlos Coronel in net, and he only gave me 1 point and gave up 5 goals first time out. So I'm looking real good right now when it comes to fantasy for the week. We talked about Cincy and Philly, Orlando City and New England Revolution. Orlando City at home, the Revs, not who they were last season by any stretch of the imagination. Intriguing for that reason, and that reason only, to see how many times Bruce Arena will sit there and yell at center refs and ARs for an entire 2-hour period. Nashville and Toronto. This one to me is interesting because of what we were talking about with Nashville. And because we don't know which version of Toronto we're going to see. Are we going to see the one that was gangbusters at home, or the one trying to figure out how to score on the road? Nashville, Toronto, interesting for different reasons. Nashville right now to minus 118.
That's a very good point. The way you just elaborated that. I mean, Toronto was a team that generated some opportunities, but there were more half chances, the real chances, against let's put it that way, not very good New England Revolution team, right? Leggett is now gone. They're trying to figure out what they're going to be. So I'm trying to just kind of gauge what that absence of Legit had been, because he's always been a bruise guy and someone that had been putting in a lot of minutes for this team. Now he's in Dallas, so that's going to be interesting. And in Toronto, as I mentioned, they had all their guns. Insigne started, Jimenez started. Everybody was out there for this team, and they were not able to look like that team the week prior. So yes, what type of continuity will we get from Bob Bradley's team? That's still to be seen.
Sporting hosting LAG. LAG is a slight road favorite, not a surprise considering Sporting's at the bottom of the table in the West. Austin hosting San Jose. You might want to take the over on that one. Austin at a minus 167. San Jose pushing a plus 400. Colorado, Minnesota. How does Colorado return from the madness at Red Bull Arena in the midweek and then having to face Minnesota United at home? To the Prairie Dogs help Colorado out in this one, going up against Minnesota United. Minnesota United, get this, Nico, Minnesota United's a plus 330.
That's pretty interesting, man.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Colorado coming in from getting four put on by the Red Bulls. I mean that's the Red Bulls. So that's very interesting for that one. But it should be a good game. I'll watch it. There are probably going to be a lot of goals in that one.
So you're saying take the over in Colorado, Minnesota. Okay.
I would, especially Colorado can get in a little bit of a mood with Diego Rubio and Barrios, and they could put up some goals. Esteves gets in there, so yeah, that should be a very high scoring game. I would take the over.
Plus 3.5 is a plus 160. Plus 4.5 is a plus 366. Plus
ooh.
So plus 4 is 94. So that's that range right there. I like the 4.5. I like the 3.5, but I like the 3.5, but I like the 4.5 even more, especially at a plus 366. But that's just me.
I'll do the 4.5.
All right, so 4.5 it is. 2 more to go. RSL hosting LAFC. LAFC is a slight road favorite at a plus 146. RSL's a plus 167. Last one on the board, Portland hosting Dallas. Dallas, once again, we don't know what version we're going to get. Are we going to get the one that won 1-0? Or are we going to get the one that had issues in the midweek, losing 1-0? Portland at home at Providence Park is a plus 112. FC Dallas is north of plus 215.
Yeah, because I'm sick and tired of talking about LAFC. Let's talk about Portland FC Dallas. That's going to be a good one. I think you're going to get a full-on team. There was no doubt that there was some rotations made for the game at Lumen. Arriola came in late. Ferreira came in late. They struggled against a Sounders team that was really able to minimize their impact when they came on. But once they start and they get going, that's going to be a very good game. Portland on their end, Santiago Moreno has been fantastic. Blanco is starting to look like the Blanco of old. So that's going to be a very good game, back and forth. I don't think it's going to be a lot of goals, but I think it's going to be very back and forth. Lots of opportunities, good, exciting game to finish your Saturday.
MLS After Dark, 10:30 Eastern Time. What's going on at Pulso Sports and with Niko Moreno this week?
Hey, well, with Pulso Sports, we are hopefully working on a story of some of these transfers that came into the league and which could make the most impact. I mean, we still got another couple hours of the window being open. LAFC is still trying to get some guys in. I'm still trying to figure out how they're going to do it. Is Chicho going to go out? So I'm really monitoring this LAFC team that, once again, I think they are doing too much, and I think they're going to end up crashing. Too many changes for a team that was already good. Just go ahead and leave me on that one. And then obviously the LA Galaxy and everything that's going on. So you'll get a good article on that piece from Pulso Sports.
El Rolo NW on the Twitters. As always, fantastic to catch up with you, my friend. We will catch up next week, and we will discuss the fallout of Atlanta United and Seattle. Be well, my friend. We'll catch up with you next week.
See you, my guys. Everything good.